You are tampering with forces you can't understand. We have major corporations sponsoring this event.
You are tuned in to the Fantasy Wire HQ Quick Cast. Today's show is brought to you by Full Time Fantasy, home of the Fantasy Football World Championships. We're also a proud member of the Full Time Fantasy Network. Check them out online at fulltimefantasy.com. All right, welcome to the show, Matt. Glad to have you on today to talk some Packers. This is the fan cast.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, this is the fan cast, so let the people know a little about you, just your fandom, getting into the Packers, whatever you want to let rip. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so really it all started, I became a Packer fan in 1994. I was 10 years old. That's when I really started watching football with my dad. He was a Packers fan, so that was an easy segue because they were a good team. Mid-90s, Brett Favre era. So I kind of just stuck around my dad a lot back then, and now I'm 36 and as diehard as ever as a Packer fan. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Now you are not in Wisco, is that right?
Unfortunately not. I would love to be, but I'm down in Illinois.
It's hard down in Bear Country, man. They gang up on you down there.
Oh man, they're savages down here. I have to be careful what I wear in public.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. You can't let anything slip about Packers. You just got to stay neutral, or depending.
Yeah,
where
a lot of biting my tongue. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anybody listening, give him a follow on Twitter at @TheRealMattPort, and it's a good follow. So make sure you hit him there. And then today we're going to discuss the NFC North, and we're going to do a little bit of both with the real life NFL, and then a little fantasy football end of things, of course. So looking at non-fantasy related, this is real life NFL thoughts. Just give me what you're thinking on the division. Packers win it, Vikings second, Lions, and then I was going to put the Bears last, maybe, is how I had it ranked. What are you thinking here?
So really, we're similar most of the way down. I actually, the big difference is I have the Bears finishing second and the Lions finishing last. So I have I have Packers, Bears, Vikings, Lions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure because I'm looking at the Bears. I want to put them in second, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just on the Nick Foles factor alone. Trubisky's going to get out of there. But now, with all the COVID stuff, what team gets wiped out the hardest down the depth chart? And I know the Bears have 2,000 tight ends they can choose from, but still, what about the rest of the guys?
Well, the Bears actually just lost Eddie Goldman today. He's choosing to opt out.
Yep, I saw that. So it's like, I don't know. I guess it's going to suck for everybody. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of feel like my gut says it hits the Bears the hardest. I don't know. It's a tough call. And then the Vikings, too. They had Michael Pierce, their free agent from the Ravens, who's that was a good signing. He opted out. So now the Vikings, that D-line's going to be hurting because they lost who was the other guy they lost out this season?
Griffin.
Free agency. Griffin, and was it Linval Joseph?
Oh, Linval Joseph. Yeah, Linval Joseph. Well, yeah, he's going too.
So that's a big blow. You had Pierce to fill his spot. Now you don't have Pierce, and I mean this is only the opt-out phase of things. So it's pretty crazy. We got till Saturday, so I'm sure there's going to be more.
Yeah, really, if you think about it, I could see the Vikings finishing dead last this year just because they've lost so much on the defensive side of the ball, in secondary, and on their D line. Then they lost Diggs on offense. I'm not a real big Kirk Cousins guy anyway. So when you ask about the division this year, this might be the most up for grabs year I've seen in the NFC North in terms of who's going to emerge. I don't think there's going to be any clear-cut runaway, first place division team this year. I could see it being, several different ways, really. So
yeah, it could go anyway with all the COVID stuff. If we're out, I put it on Twitter today. It's like, at what point does it become a competitive unbalance, right? If something rips through a
right.
team or a position group, how far do you go down? How far does that go back? I mean, that can really skew the table for teams that were good, for teams that were bad. They can really go worse. And then I don't know. I'm going to hit you with something here. Speaking of the opt-out stuff, we got a fresh one as of I think like an hour ago. Devin Funchess opted out.
Did he really?
Yes.
I did not see that. Wow, Devin Funchess opted out. Well,
and that was per Field Yates had posted that on Twitter. I'm trying to see the time he had posted.
As if the Packers receiver core needed any more blows.
Yeah, so you bring up the depth chart, and you're going to have Adams, you're going to have Lazard should keep his number 2 spot as he did last season, which is good. I think he was fine. I figured he would take it in the offseason anyway in camp. So that keeps MVS around. We're not getting rid of him so quick.
Right.
And can EQ Equanimus St. Brown, can he step up and do something here with full good health, ready to go? This is a tough depth chart to make sense of, man. Who can emerge?
And then you have Jake. You have Jake Kumaro. You throw him in there too as well, I think.
Yep,
and,
Whitewater Jesus. He can do something.
Whitewater Jesus, man. That's right.
Absolutely.
I think you let him and EQ battle it out for wide receiver 4, honestly.
Yeah, I think even the slot, at the 3 spot, MVS, Kumaro, St. Brown, I think one of those 3 take that. And then you've got Bagleton, CFL guy, on the back end of that. Darius Shepard made a couple flashes last season. Outside of that, those are your guys. If anything should happen there, it's going to be trouble, man. And it's like the Packers sit at that draft and take no receivers. God, you got to be kicking yourself now, right?
I know it. Yeah, absolutely. Because now if the reality is, if let's say Adams comes down with COVID or whatever, then they really are, what's this phrase? Up the creek without a paddle.
Yes. Yeah, it could get.
They don't have a great tight end to throw to. Yeah, it really could. COVID could really, like you said, it could really skew the competitive balance of teams this year. And at that point, the NFL product, what does it become?
Yeah, especially. And then you're going to have street free agents. I'm sure you've got to have a pretty long list of street guys off the scrap heap you can sign. I'd imagine they're going to be somewhere separate outside of, being infected or quarantined at some point that they can pull them from, but then they've got to step in and come up. It's just a mess. I don't know. Baseball is already, Miami's not looking good today. We found out a bunch of stuff with damn near the whole team. Hopefully we don't have one of those situations in the NFL. I'd imagine.
Really, September's only a month away. Really at this point. I was hoping that we'd have a better handle on things come close to training camp, and it seems like we're really in no better spot now than we were, back in March, April, or May. It seems like it's just not going away. So.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season, and I hope that they've got more things in place. It's just a lot of confusion, I think, for you test negative, then I think for baseball, you got to have so many positive tests before you can come back. Is the NFL?
Yeah, the NFL. I think I saw that you had to have. They posted something about the Players Association that you had to test. You had to have so many positive tests within 48 hours before you're reactivated if you do have it, stuff like that. So isn't going to be an easy path to just come back to, kind of like concussion protocol, right? You got to sit out and you got to not show signs of symptoms, for X period of time before, and it's going to be slow to bring you back. So yeah, COVID could turn this season up on its head.
Yeah, I think that's like Juan Soto's problem right now for baseball, for the Nationals. He was out, and then now he can't string together back-to-back positive tests or something. I don't know what this stuff does in your system. Does it give you false positives, false negatives? Nobody really knows for sure, I guess, or not that I've heard. So when it comes to the NFL, are they going to adopt a similar theme to make them have to go through the same, hoops to clear you to come back. If that's the case, then it could be pretty frustrating with guys that are totally fine, but yet their system is going to kick a positive test, even though they're fine, symptoms, whatever the case. That could be really frustrating. Then a guy could take longer than the 2 weeks to come back, and then you miss 2 weeks in the NFL, the season's over before you know it.
Yeah, that's the bad thing, man. It's a 2 week deal, so they're missing, 2 games, obviously, and then, and it would be frustrating, as a fan, knowing that guy's not showing any signs of symptoms, but yeah, it's mandatory that he sits out. Meanwhile, you got, his replacement in, and the team is just not the same.
Right.
And I'm holding my breath for this season. I'm hoping that it's as close to normal as possible, and it's going to be interesting to see what develops for sure once the season gets here. They've already canceled training camp or preseason games and no fans. And I think I saw that they're only going to allow like 10,000 fans at Lambeau Field this year.
Yeah, I saw that, and I posted like, well, 10,000, you won't know the difference because everybody is so damn drunk and rowdy. They'll make enough noise for a whole stadium full. I mean, can you imagine the shit you're gonna hear when they're in the stands? Oh my god.
Oh man, yeah. That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that. They're gonna have a lot louder voice. They might. You might hear a lot of things flying on live TV this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, one Packer fan can equate to the volume of like 5 fans, right? Drunk level,
yeah, they're pretty loud.
Level, scream, you name it, everything. But then the downside is that's a big chunk that you got to skim off the top for the drunk fans that don't make it through the first quarter. So that it could be even less. It could be way less. Way less.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good point.
Every game that I've ever gone to in my life, I've seen people, I'm literally walking in maybe half an hour before the national anthem's going to go off, and I've seen people with their head and their arms over the railings of the front row. And I'm like, already? How? Already?
They've been tailgating since 8 o'clock that morning. That's how they get that way.
It's crazy. My daughter and I went to one of the playoff games, and we went, I think it was like middle of first quarter, end of first quarter of the game. We're just going to go get some drinks and stuff. And there was somebody passed out on the concourse already. Medics are over by him.
Wow.
And crap. It's like, you guys got to chill. So I don't know. There could be a pretty massive chunk of people downgraded, right off the bat. It's gonna be really interesting. And I can't imagine seeing it that, well, I guess even family night sells out. So, God, to even skim that in half is crazy, I don't know. That's weird.
Well, there's not going to be any fans allowed at family night now, I saw.
No, yeah, I think that'll be gone for this season.
Yeah. Yeah,
Crazy.
That's really unfortunate. The local Green Bay economy is taking a big hit for sure.
Yeah. Have you been to a game at all? Have you ever been up there for a game?
Oh yeah, I've been to. Let me see. I think I've been to 3 games at Lambeau, and one game is back when the Rams played in St. Louis, and then one game when the Bears played at U of I. I went to that game too. So
cool. Well, let's talk about the NFC playoff seeding. So we're going to progress through the season, and let's hope everything goes to plan. Now we lay out the NFC playoffs, and this is like one of my favorite things every season. I love looking at the seeding and looking at who's going to be slotted where. And every year, I think, what do they say? You can pull off 5 to 7 teams that made the playoffs the one year and do not return. So on the NFC side, I looked at it, and I could only cut it up so many ways, and I've only got the Eagles and the Vikings not returning to the playoffs. And in their place, I would slot the Bucks, and it's not just the Brady factor, and then I'd slot the Cowboys. And I would love to see a McCarthy-Packers playoff game, right? Somewhere along the lines. I don't know how it shakes down, but but for teams to return, I think the Saints return. The Niners defense is just too damn good. And you've got everybody pretty much set in Shanahan's system, right? They know what they're doing out there.
Yes.
I could see them returning, the Packers and the Seahawks too, because Seahawks just signed Adams. I don't think he's not going to take that defense back to the Legion of Boom days, but he is a key piece on the back end of what they need. The opposing teams just can't air it out anymore, with him in the backfield. He can come up and make plays at the line too. So, but I think the Seahawks could return. and then you got the Bucks and Cowboys as well, maybe wild card teams or something like that. But any ideas on your playoff seeding? Who do you got in there?
Honestly, you kind of nailed it. I definitely like adding the Bucks and the Cowboys. Much as I hate to say it, I cannot stand the Cowboys, but I think that they're definitely going to win their division. I think, and I think they're going to be a team that can make a deep playoff run. The Buccaneers, similar to what you said, it isn't just a Brady factor. I think they're just primed for a great season. Niners, Packers, Seahawks, Saints. I mean, I think we got it dialed in. I think that if you're going to put money on it now, I think that's what I'd put it on.
Yeah, I was going to say the Bucks because without Winston throwing all those picks, they could have been a playoff team this past year.
I know.
Their defense was good enough to keep him into it. And then now Arians has got a quarterback that's going to execute his system. He's going to play within the system. So I think Brady is, he's a vet. He's still damn good. He's not the same Brady, but can he be efficient in a Bruce Arians offense when he's going to dial up plays and they're going to work on a playbook together to what suits his strong points? And, you don't have Winston out there just slinging it and pick six in it,
right?
30 interceptions and all that. I mean, if you took that away from him, they'd have done something. So I think the Bucks could definitely get in there this season, and who knows what happens, with that team along the way. That's an interesting team to follow.
And really, I think that you could argue that this is probably the best team offensively Brady's ever played on in terms of weapons. I mean, he's got Gronk back. He has Evans and Godwin at receiver. I mean, just those three people alone, I think he's going to have he could have a monster year statistically at age, 64, however old he is now.
Yeah, 65, retirement.
I mean, right. He's, exactly. I think the Bucks with a competent quarterback, I think they could be kind of scary, actually. So.
Yeah, and then the Cowboys in place of the Vikings, I've got them just because with McCarthy in there, and then they've got, who is it, Kellen? The guy, their offensive.
Oh, Kellen Clemens?
Clemens, yeah. I can never remember.
Yeah,
Boise State quarterback and then an NFL cup of coffee. But those two together, I think they could scheme up a nice offense for the Cowboys, and they've got weapons too. I mean, pick your poison with Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb now, Zeke, Dak. I mean, that's another well-balanced team in a long time that hasn't been a well-oiled machine like it should be that we're accustomed to seeing. I think those two guys together can really dial it in. I would love to see what they can do. I'm not a big Cowboy fan either, but just looking at the team as a whole offensively, they've got it pretty good at every skill position, and they've got a quarterback that can get it done. I think maybe Jason Garrett was most of the problem the past few seasons.
I totally agree.
You can't get him over the hump. I don't know if it's just changing what you do in the playoffs or scheming something up. I don't know, but I think they can do it. McCarthy, I'm really interested to see what he's learned, his self-reflection and seeing the light, and what's he going to do different? Is he going to run the ball? He didn't like running the ball in Green Bay. Is he going to?
Right.
It's crazy. I don't know. It's fascinating to me. I'm not a big McCarthy fan, but I did like the coach for the most part when he was in Green Bay. He got a Super Bowl win. You can't take that away, but he totally slacked off at the end. Absolutely.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Oh,
he definitely did.
That offense, when you look at what they did in 2010 to what they did the last two seasons here, oh my God, it was nothing like what they did at all. It was
pathetic. I mean, you look at Aaron Jones, waiting to be released on the NFL, and McCarthy just flat out would not utilize him. And then LaFleur comes in year one, decides, hey, this guy's pretty good. Let's give him the ball, and he put up gaudy numbers. He didn't have a ton of yards. Like he had I think he had just over 1,000 yards, but he had, I forget how many touchdowns and just several big plays. So that was one of my biggest criticisms, was that you have Aaron Jones, you're not using him. And then the whole team just steadily fell apart after that. But to your point about McCarthy in Dallas, I do think McCarthy is a great offensive mind. I think that he will get the most out of the Cowboys on offense. And as much as it pains me to say it, I think the Cowboys, this might be a year where, how other fans like to pretend like they're going to the ship every year. This might be the year.
You never know. Yeah, you never know. The defense, I think, is what holds them back most. Their defense.
Yeah, their defense. Yeah.
That's key. That's key for any title run for any team, but for them, it's pretty damn important. But you never know. McCarthy is, if it's throwing the ball, I mean, he's scoring quick, not sustaining long drives. He can. He's got Zeke if he wanted, but depends on the balance offensively.
Well, he's going to run the ball. I mean, Jerry Jones won't let him not run the ball. They paid Zeke. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, if he doesn't run Zeke, there's going to be problems with management because they finally caved in and kind of paid Zeke, and if McCarthy goes in and thinks he's not going to use Zeke, I mean, get ready.
Yeah, old Gerald will call down, Mac, we need to run Zeke. I need you to run him hard. He's going to be down in his ear 24/7.
Right. That's one of the biggest shocks to me. I was like, man, McCarthy's very stubborn. I would have never put him together with Jerry Jones, two guys that are very stubborn and strong-willed. I'm like, that could be really good or really bad. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point because when things do go bad, they always do, that's going to get ugly. Mm-hmm. That's going to get ugly fast.
Yeah. It might turn into a shit show pretty quick in Dallas.
Oh, man. Any kind of drama in Dallas is always primo entertainment, I believe.
Yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit.
So let's jump in. We discussed some real life NFL, but let's talk some fantasy. Fantasy alert. Categories. It's the off season, so everybody's guessing at this point, but everybody's got their targets and picks and breakout guys. So I wanted to run through here and just focus on players in the NFC North. And these are just players of our choice. Slot them into some categories. Just see how we feel about each guy. And I'll go first. I had a top NFC North fantasy target. So this is just, if I can only pick one target for 2020, I'm looking at Cook. I want Dalvin Cook for the Vikes. I mean, he broke out last season, 250 carries, 1,350 rushing yards, lots of catches out of the backfield. I know everybody always worries about his health. He had the holdout announcement earlier this offseason. Now I think his agent, he came out and said he wasn't, and then his agent said he is. Who knows? That's all talk until the season starts. But does he go the Melvin Gordon route and hold out for an entire season or what have you? Who knows, man? But fantasy, I'm still going to draft him. I grabbed him in a dynasty league earlier, and if you got Madison as his backup, I mean, you could go with that. But just that Vikings scheme, it's a ground and pound type scheme. So rushing, top running back. I love Cook. Give me Cook. He's my top target.
Yeah, and really, if there wasn't any talk of holdout, because he did report to camp, or he said he's going to report to camp, but he wants a new deal. If that wasn't a narrative right now at all, I think it would be clear cut. Dalvin Cook, he's a beast on a run first team. So, but I actually went a little different than you there. I went to Devontae Adams, just because if Cook does hold out, I don't really see there being another guy worthy of the number one NFC North pick than Devontae Adams. So,
yeah, Adams is the guy. He's getting the ball. No matter what.
He's in terms of volume, because that's what fantasy is all about, like how much volume, how many targets are they getting. He's Rodgers' main weapon. Other than him, who else does? I mean, Rodgers isn't throwing to a lot of people. He's not throwing any of the tight ends really. They don't really have a tight end.
I wish they'd bring the tight end game back.
I know, right? It'd be great, but yeah, I think overall I do agree with you that Dalvin Cook probably is the top fantasy target in the NFC North. If there's no holdout, I don't know how you go other than Dalvin Cook first out of all the teams in the NFC there, so NFC North there.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, that could scare some people in your draft, depending on your draft league mates. Mm-hmm. That could scare somebody. Maybe he drops a couple spots, and you can pick him up, and then bookend a Madison later. And you're set, you're fine. Because nobody's going to take Madison super early, even if they're unsure of Cook, right? So you can still and scoop him up. But all right, so we got Matt with Devontae Adams. I'm taking Cook. And then on the next category, we're looking at just a value pick outside of the top 25. So, I mean, you run through your ones, everybody knows who you're grabbing across the board. But outside of that top 25, that's when things get ugly and everybody's going for their guys and who they like. But I was looking at Marvin Jones on the Lions. Finished last season as a top 30 receiver. He gets around that wide receiver 39 to 45 kind of ADP. And I think he's a pretty solid candidate to outperform his ADP this season. He's cheap in drafts. I can usually get him mock drafts. I can grab him damn near every time, but I think he's someone who's like a perfect wide receiver 3 or a flex option in your lineup. And it's a good value pick. He hasn't typically played every season all the way through. He's been getting injured past couple seasons, but he's pretty clutch with teams focusing on Kenny Galladay. Matt Stafford will sling it. He's a good quarterback when he's healthy. He's tough as hell. He plays every game. And Jones is a pretty good check down guy for him, slot guy. They move him around. He can do a lot of different things in the offense. So I like Jones outside the top 25. He's a guy I try to target in most of my drafts. I can typically land him, but he's a good one to get you some value, especially on the bye weeks, things like that. You're scrambling. You don't want to plug in the worst guys in there, but to get you something, he usually comes through.
And Marvin Jones is a guy that I've owned off and on several times. I've been playing fantasy football since I was like 12. And he's always been a guy that's floated around as either a drafted or like a steal in the waivers or someone you can get late. But he's also equally one of the most frustrating fantasy players to own because he will do nothing for 2 weeks and then have a monster game on your bench.
Yeah, you got to know when to dump him, and you definitely got to know when to play him. I've had
that happen to me so many times. Yeah, because it's for him. It's a lot of boom and bust. I mean, he definitely is capable of having some boom games where he puts up just monster numbers. But then there's games where, he'll get 2 catches for 10 yards, and it's like, and I started him over somebody else that blew up on my bench. So I like Marvin Jones. He's just, for me, he's very frustrating to figure out when to play.
Yeah. So who do you like outside the top 25?
Well, so I was going to ask you, you got Galladay and Aaron Jones inside top 25 this year?
Yeah, typically they're always in there. Galladay, yeah, he's usually above top 25. I should probably look at some rankings, but
I think last year he was taken 24th on average.
Was he? Yeah, I mean,
top 24.
Some of them are fringe. Yeah, some of them are definitely fringe.
So I actually had Galladay written down just based on where he was drafted last year. Now that's probably a little false because he did have a great year last year. So I would be surprised if he was in the outside of the 25 this year. Maybe he is in non-PPR leagues. But just going off of where he was drafted last year, if you can obviously get him at 24, 25, that's the biggest steal of the draft. In my opinion there. Other than that, though, I do like Marvin Jones outside the top 25 just because, there's not a lot of great wide receiver 2s in the NFC North. And I think he probably emerges as the top wide receiver 2, in the NFC North. Anyway.
Yeah, you'd think. Outside opposite of Galladay, it's them 1 and 2. And then anybody else, Bears, it's Miller, Robinson.
Well, maybe Adam Thielen would be a great top, out of the top 25. Just I don't know where he's going to go this year. I guess I'd be surprised if he went inside the top 25, just because last year was kind of a down year for him. He had some injury and everything like that. But he might have a monster year this year just without Diggs. He might get the bulk of the targets there. Right. So maybe I guess if I could go back, I would change it to probably Adam Thielen outside the top 25.
Okay. Yeah, Thielen, and I think Jefferson just got Corona, right? I think he tested positive, so he may be out.
Did he really? Wow, I did not see that. But
yeah, I think it was a couple weeks ago. They said he did. So that could be an issue. Who knows? Maybe he's all right by the time season rolls around, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, I think I'd probably peg Thielen as maybe like a fringe 25 player this year, like 25 to 30. So that's probably going to be who I would pick as, what was it, best value outside top 25? That's probably, I'm going to go with Adam Thielen.
All right. And then on breakouts, we got a breakout every season, right? Somebody steps on the scene. It's like, holy shit, where'd this guy come from? For me, right. I think it's Anthony Miller makes some noise. And he made some good starts last season, but then he had some injuries. If you look close at his stuff last season, he played over 70% of the snaps in 11 games, 7.5 targets, 4.5 receptions, 64 yards, and about a touchdown per game. So that's pretty much around the same fantasy stat lines as like Courtland Sutton, Terry McLaurin, Odell last year. But there's always the questions about his health. So that's the biggest thing that held him back. But I think he could have a breakout season this year. I like him more if Nick Foles is throwing him the ball than Trubisky, to be honest, because Foles running that RPO that he did in Philly, if he runs that in Chicago, which I think he will, I think Miller benefits almost the most of anybody in that offense. Obviously, Robinson's going to get his, but Miller and, say, Tariq Cohen are prime benefactors for that RPO style. So I think he'll produce when he's on the field. Like I said, especially if Nick Foles takes over, and he loves slot receivers. Foles is always getting that ball to slot receivers. So I think Miller could break out, and if he's healthy, that could be a huge breakout season for him.
Yeah, and I actually had Anthony Miller here written down just because of the things I figure, if they can go with Foles, get a little bit better quarterback play, he's a player that I think would qualify as like a fantasy breakout since he hasn't really done a lot, yet. I think that this year could be a year, and I went back and forth on him and the guy I'm going to say for the next bullet point. But yeah, I think Anthony Miller really I think he really is primed for that, kind of a fantasy breakout as wide receiver too.
Yeah, when I was looking at this. Go ahead.
It definitely, and that's definitely if Foles is under center, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when I was looking at like the stat lines and stuff for him, and I broke it down by the minute, and it was like 11.6 fantasy points per game. And then you're like, damn, that's the same mark as Sutton, Terry, Odell.
Yeah,
like, I didn't really think of it like that until I saw that number, and then that number was like, well, shit. I mean, if he stays healthy, it's always a big if. Everybody says, oh, it's if, but still, you see it a lot of times. Guys that are injured all the time, they'll put together a season where they're on top of the world, man. They're healthy, they play every game. Where they miss less. We've seen for as long as we've been watching football, right? We've seen it every year. Somebody does it. So why not?
Right.
Why not Miller? Especially in an offense
why not
where
Miller?
He's a little more efficient. I really think Foles is the difference maker. So yeah, why not, man?
Yep. So then it's difficult for me to choose really any Bear on the offensive side, but why? I mean, it's his third year. It's time for him to step up. I think this is kind of the year where they figure out who they have in him. So
yeah, and those contract years are always huge on their own, right?
Right.
Yeah, you want to play that whole season, if not just to get tape out there that somebody signs you. If the team
exactly.
doesn't. So it's always a big deal. That always plays a factor. I think I put a lot of stock in that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And then surprise player at 2020. We may have the same one. I don't know, but who's going to surprise me out of the NFC North this year? There was a couple picks I could have taken, but I was looking at Jace Sternberger for the Pack, tight end. I think there's a realistic chance that he can finish maybe second on this team in targets. And we were talking about at the top, if that wide receiver class gets depleted as it could, who else is getting these targets, right? They've got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham is gone. Mercedes Lewis is not your pass catching tight end. And I think the Packers they're headed on like a heavy 12 personnel package where Sternberger doesn't come off the field. So Adams is going to get, 150 plus targets probably. The ball's got to go somewhere else. I think he's a dart throw at the tight end position, but he's got the talent to maximize opportunity. Because if he's on the field, if it's Lewis and him in the two tight end set, those targets should be his for passing to tight ends. Red zone looks maybe, red zone packages, stuff like that. They're going to have to get creative within the 20s, right? You can't just roll everything to Adams or Jones. So I think it's a deep league. You're going to want to draft them. If it's a redraft where, maybe roll the dice on him late. If the tight end class is depleted, then you pick him up late. Or it's somebody that you've got, a watch list icon start up on your waiver wire and you grab them as soon as it's warming up, right? Kind of like that.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, if it's a deep league, I'm definitely gonna draft them when I can, when the time is right. And smaller league or something like that, put them on that watch list and get them at the right spot. That's the biggest thing.
And they were also talking about playing Sternberger out of the slot this year too, just to, try to mix things up a little bit. And because he's a pass catching tight end, he's not really. They didn't draft him for his blocking, So
I thought he looked good last season.
Yeah, he did look good. My only concern with him is that he just did not get a lot of playing time last season, a lot of time to mesh with Rodgers,
right?
In the live game. So, and then I think that you will see a little bit of Bob Tonyan in place of Sternberger this year too. Just I think he's got more time with the team than Sternberger. It could go either way, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Sternberger, have a great sophomore campaign and be the surprise player of the NFC North.
Yep.
But who I had there was actually David Montgomery, Bears running back.
Oh, okay.
A guy that he kind of underperformed, I felt last year, and I don't know if that was necessarily his fault. I don't think the Bears O-line is anything special, but I think that there's pressure on Nagy to get him more involved in the game plans. And just the way this Bears are built, they're obviously best defense probably in the league. Their offense, I think, is going to be a control the clock situation on offense, and try to, just not turn the ball over and score points here and there. And that's how they're going to win games. And I think there's going to be an emphasis on running the ball this year in Chicago, just to take some of the pressure off of whoever it is at quarterback. And I can remember a lot of Bears fans down here in Illinois last year saying, why isn't Montgomery getting the ball? There's a lot of that talk going on. So I think that maybe Montgomery might have a much better sophomore campaign than he did as a rookie last year. I mean, he had some nice games. I think his last game of the season, he had like over 100 yards and a touchdown. But anyway, I would look for him to definitely improve upon his rookie campaign and maybe, turn into kind of a surprise. Hey, he could be a solid RB2 or a flex,
Yeah, he's definitely got the volume there to have a good season, and you're absolutely right. I think it's like a combination of everything last season. Nagy really did him wrong when he should have been running him and he wasn't. He's we're gonna throw this game, like his game scripts and plans were just out there. Like, why are you not just pounding the rock right now? And there he is, Trubisky's slinging it like no tomorrow. You're not gonna win like this. And then he'd have one game where he uses them and he puts together a good game, and then it's like, okay, you're getting something rolling, keep it going. And then he totally abandons the run. It's weird. So I think, you're right. It was a combination of that, the O-line, Trubisky. I mean, what defense is really scared of him? So, hey, stack the box. Dare him to beat you, right? Dare Trubisky to beat you with his arm. So that's a good pick. That's a good pick.
Yeah. So that was my what was NFC North surprise player 2020. I could see Montgomery just maybe having like close to 1,000 yards and maybe 10 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah, everybody writes him off on Twitter too. I mean, there's a pocket of people that I've seen saying he's going to have a good season. The volume's there, and it is. And then for the most part, everybody's like, "Screw, I'm not drafting him. He sucks. Whatever. I'll take him way late." But yeah,
he averaged 3.7 yards per carry last year, which is not good.
No,
but again, I don't put that all on him. I mean, I think a lot of like you said, teams are like, they're not going to be this passing, and I think that the O-line is not very good either. So, I mean, I think it was kind of a perfect storm against Montgomery, and hopefully Nagy figures that out and that, Montgomery can get going this year. So, because I'm looking to draft him kind of later, as well. So.
Definitely. And then any player, there's always these players in drafts that I do where I usually make cheat sheets for all my leagues, and I'll put together tiers, and then I'll go through each tier and I'll put like a highlight for a guy that's my pick. This is the guy I want. And then if he is gone and I can't get him, then I highlight a guy that I would take. So that's like my backup plan. Because you drink a few in the draft, you kind of lose track of stuff. You're BSing with everybody and whatnot, right? So I need something to keep me focused, or otherwise I'll tank the draft. And then I'll put a value pick I'm serious. And I'll do like a value pick in green. And that's just a guy that, if I'm looking at that section or neighborhood of players and I'm like, man, I don't really like any of these guys, I'll take the value guy because I've done a little research prior to the draft where he's likely to pay off the most. But I always have that red line across for my undraftable player. And my undraftable player for the NFC North, believe it or not, is Kyle Rudolph. And I know most of the hype this well, there hasn't been too much hype, but most of the talk this offseason has been, well, Gary Kubiak's your coordinator. He's calling the plays. He likes tight ends. He features tight ends. But Rudolph he never gets enough targets to be relevant any season, it seems like. And he's really just valuable on touchdowns. That's really the only value-driven commodity he provides. So I think Irv Smith gets a little more involved in the offense and that Vikings offense. I think that prevents him from really, being a consistent high-ranking tight end in the fantasy landscape. So to me, he's like a low-end guy that there's better options. I'd rather hit a different guy and, see somebody else take off. Maybe that's a flyer pick, that's going to get a little more targets than he would, or maybe he's the only guy. I don't know. So for me, Rudolph is a guy I'm just not even going to draft.
So and you're right. Rudolph is like a touchdown dependent fantasy guy. I've actually had to take him a couple of years off the waivers, just due to buys or injuries or what have you. It's been kind of a love-hate with Rudolph. I've gotten lucky with a couple of spot starts with him. So there's kind of a soft spot in my heart for Kyle Rudolph, but it's just, but you're right. He's completely not somebody you definitely draft on draft day. He's someone maybe, week 14, you need a guy, everybody on your team's dead.
Yeah. Bye week fill in or whatever.
Yeah. So on this one, I wasn't sure, how easy of a pick you were looking to make, like in terms of undraftable. So I was thinking like, well, no one should ever draft Mercedes Lewis from Green Bay because he's a tight end, but that's almost too easy to say don't draft him because I don't think he's been able to be drafted for 5-6 years probably.
Right, yeah, he shouldn't have been.
Yeah. But so I guess, kind of thinking about like you went with Rudolph, the Lions backfield has, they drafted DeAndre Swift. They had Kerryon Johnson. It makes you wonder where like a guy like Bo Scarborough would, because he kind of caught some passes last year out of the backfield, but it just makes you wonder, like, is he even draftable at this point when they've got DeAndre Swift now and Kerryon Johnson's coming back from injury? That's kind of another guy I thought might plug in there.
Yeah, Scarborough was the hot one for that moment in time last season. I grabbed him, and then it was, nope, you got to grab Ty Johnson.
It was kind of.
It was such a mess.
Yeah.
It's so hard because everybody will hype or like pick him up and hop on the train because of his one good week, and a guy like that, I'm always hesitant because I don't want to burn a waiver wire claim or budget. And it's like, I should have never wasted money on that guy. So I typically like to wait a week or two. And then maybe the second week I'll go, okay, all right, he put 2 weeks back to back. He strung something together. I'll do it. And then, like always, the third week, nope, now he sucks. You're
I know. And
anyway.
He sucks. Yeah, he sucks, and you wasted your waiver priority on him.
Yeah, so it's like, I totally agree with Scarborough there because I've seen people talk about that too, where they're, he could take over. It could be Johnson and Scarborough, or Swift and Scarborough 1 and 2 once KJ's out. And like, you never know how it's going to shake down. But yeah, Scarborough, I wouldn't even draft him either.
No. Mm-mm.
And then the NFC North has got some pretty good rookies this season. I think overall the division's got some pretty good rookies stepping in on the scene. And for me, we just talked about the Lions backfield. I know, like, I could have went Jefferson, but Swift was the one I'm looking at because if I'm looking at his opportunity, he's probably going to be splitting the workload with Kerryon Johnson. And I think either way, even if he has to split the backfield with him, he still makes an impact for fantasy. If Johnson goes down, he's at number 1. And I think you roll him out as like an RB2, a flex play. He should be pretty consistent every week, and any kind of injury to Johnson only elevates him. So I think Swift would be my rookie target if I'm looking at a NFC North guy in the draft here to target. It's Swift for me.
And that's exactly what I had. I had DeAndre Swift, and for me, it really wasn't close.
Yeah,
outside of
I
him.
think he's probably the one to pay off the most. And I know Jefferson's the flashy, toy, but man, I think Swift is the direct.
And running backs have a greater chance. If you notice, running backs have a greater chance to come in as a rookie and make like a big impact, have a big season. It's talk about David Montgomery just a little bit. The guy had 889 yards in a subpar year, as a rookie. So you get a guy. I think DeAndre Swift's a better prospect. I mean, the guy was a stud, absolute stud over there in Georgia. I think that you could definitely plug him in as maybe like a flex. I think he'll beat Kerryon Johnson out for the starting job. That kind of goes back to why I thought you can't draft Bo Scarborough, because I think he's RB3 now probably. So.
Yeah. Well, you always got to look at that's the biggest thing. That's the line that gets blurred is fantasy football and real football. And some people just can't separate the two, and they get so infatuated with one player. He's gonna he's gonna win. But real life NFL, he's got no shot. He's not going. He's not. It's not going to happen. Or what I mean? It's just not the pecking.
Right.
It's not the pecking order of the team. It's not going to play out that way. But yeah, so I mean, you always got to put most stock in the real life NFL and how it's going to go down, how it could play out, off season things, stuff like that. So yeah, I think.
Speaking of that part of, what do you think about? Sorry to interrupt. What do you think about AJ Dillon in Green Bay? Because he's kind of the big bruiser, second round draft pick.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that was a guy I thought about, but I thought there's just no way they're going to give up that many more carries to him over. That should go to Jones. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like that's what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, well, under McCarthy, they always loved Jamal Williams, right? I mean, it was always Jamal Williams was the guy, and he's good. He's not awful, but I think with LaFleur in there now, he wants a Shanahan. Everybody wants the Shanahan offense, right? That's what everybody's trying to mimic. If it's not the Shanahan offense, it's Baltimore's Lamar Jackson, dual threat quarterback stuff.
Right.
We don't have that with Rodgers, so it's going to be the ground and pound, and everything I've learned about what Matt LaFleur wants to do is it's interchangeable pieces. He wants to take Sternberger from tight end. He could line up in the next play. He could line up in the slot. Aaron Jones, same thing. He could be in the backfield or he could be outside, and just all these movable pieces. But the run is going to dictate and set up everything they do. And if they run the offense down the field the way he wants, it should be heavy run. And with Dillon, he's not coming in. He's not going to take Aaron Jones off the ball on first, second down, right? It's going to be with him and Williams. Right. But I think it's game script dependent. If they're winning at the end, it's third quarter, they got a good lead. I think you see more Williams and Dillon than you do Jones. And if it's just kind of running out the clock, goal line stuff, maybe. The guy's huge. He's gigantic, right? He's kind of like a Derrick Henry
he's
type.
a big boy.
Yeah,
exactly. He's a monster.
He's
he's
kind of like
tough
a
to
Derrick
tackle.
Henry. So you think
he's not someone you're going to want to tackle.
No. You think they've got some goal line packages set up for him, maybe. And then, like I said, if it's fourth quarter and they want to just beat that other team down, it's going to be heavy doses of Dillon. But to come out and start games first half, I don't think you see much of them at all. Maybe a spell, maybe Jones tweaks something or he just needs a breather. He's in there, but I think they stick with Williams above him for now, for this season anyway. But then again, if there's an injury, everybody gets elevated instantly. So, but I think he's more he's your Punisher, right? You're like late round, just beat teams in a submission type back. I think that's how they're going to use him most if they've got leads.
I like your situation about how it's late in the game, the defense is tired, and then you start pounding them with AJ Dillon because they're already tired. Now they're going to tackle 6 foot, 250-pound bowling ball. It's like, I mean, I don't want to tackle him on a fresh, let alone in the fourth quarter when it's cold out and we're dog tired. So I mean, but I do think that is going to hurt Jones's production, like you think this year. In terms
it'll
of
take some
maybe late in the game scores.
Yeah, he could vulture some touchdowns. He could take some targets away. But I think your early setup downs are going to be Jones, and then mid game, end of game, it's going to be Williams and Dillon primarily.
So do you think Jones might slip out of the top 25 as a result of maybe people's perception of, oh, if they took a running back in the second round, it's gonna be a committee. Do you think Jones falls out of the top 25 now?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he gets no love on Twitter. Do you see that? I mean, everybody
Aaron Jones.
shits
It's
on him. Like
it's embarrassing.
Everybody has completely written him off, and I picked him up in that Scott Fishbowl draft. He was like, I can't even remember. He was the top 10 running back for the scoring in that league. He was still on the block, like available late. I think I got him in the third round or fourth or something, and I had to take him. It was like, there's no way. How is he still here? He's still here, and of course, he's going to have some regression, right? I think the big thing in Twitter is regression. Everybody is so infatuated with that word, and when you hear it, most people take it to the extreme, and they go, "Oh, there's no way he repeats. He's going to regress. He's not going to get half of what he got last." It's like, no, that's where you're not separating the real life NFL and the fantasy world, because in real life, is he going to lose a bit? Yeah, I mean, nobody can sustain that year in and year out. Lamar Jackson too. I mean, but it doesn't mean they're going to fall off. He's still the guy. Look what he did.
Yeah,
that's his first season. You think Matt LaFleur is looking at tape and going, we can't use Jones that much this year, guys. We got to scale it back. You know what I mean? Like he wants to run the ball. Matt LaFleur wants heavy run action. So when he sees all the tape, everything that went down last season, he goes, I want that and more. So like I said, I think it's more game script dependent. Let's say it's a close game and they're still in it. Maybe they're down a score, up a score, whatever it may be. I think you still see Jones because you want him. He's a playmaker. He tilts the field. If he's catching passes out of the backfield, he tilts the field when the ball is in his hand. So I don't want to pull. Would Matt LaFleur want to pull him off the field to put in a rookie or Williams at that point? No. And when the Packers
I don't think so.
Yeah, when the Packers play tough teams, they're closer than they're always close games when they have to play a real team, or if it's a team that runs the ball, like the Eagles. Remember, Packers can't stop the run, right? So
no, they can't. Jordan Howard ran all over them last year.
Yeah, so I mean, look at the games and look at the teams that they're going to play. I think they got a pretty decent schedule this season. I don't remember what it was ranked, but sometimes the Packers play down to their opponents too. So any kind of close game, I don't see why Jones would be sitting on the bench.
Wasn't Aaron Jones the second leading receiver in Green Bay last year too?
Oh yeah, he was killing it last season. I mean, he had a breakout, just what we want. The free Aaron Jones movement, right? It was full returns on that. What everybody was saying, that's exactly how it went down.
Yeah, he's a 50 catch, 475 yards, and 3 touchdowns just receiving last year. So he's made some circus catches too. I mean, the guy's got a great pair of hands. So I just I hear different things about where Aaron Jones is going to go this year in fantasy. In PPR leagues, he's still a top 25 guy, but in non-PPR leagues, people are talking about third round maybe, stuff like that. And it's like, man, really?
Yeah. So here's his stats. He's got. Last season, it was 236 attempts, 1084 yardage. He averaged 4.59. He was putting together 67.8 yards per game, 16 touchdowns. The key stat is that he had 55 rushes that resulted in a first down. So Matt LaFleur trusts him with the ball, right, to get a first down. And then in the receiving game, 68 targets, 49 receptions, 474 yards, and 3 touchdowns, 18 of which were passes for a first down completion. So, you could take all these numbers and scale them back, but I wouldn't scale them back that far because it's dependent on the game. Who's their opponent? Are they losing? Are they winning? The Packers jump out to so many big leads early, right? And then you're like, oh, we got this one in the bag. And then what happens at the end? Whoop, there's the other team, and you're fighting and clawing to win by a touchdown or 2. So in those in those kind of games, I don't see why Jones wouldn't be in there like he normally is, right? You don't change what you're doing just to.
He's a chain mover. He keeps the drive alive.
Yeah. I mean, pass protection,
55 and 18. So almost 75 first downs alone last year just from him, right? So how do you? Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he's too much. So back to real football, he's too much of a chain mover to keep him off the field too much, And so yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on Aaron Jones because he gets disrespected on Twitter all the time. People don't recognize him, and now they're saying they drafted Dillon to replace him, and it's like, look, hang on, pump the brakes.
Yeah, I don't blame the Packers for taking Dillon because it's definitely a smart move. I like that pick because it's a contract year for Jones. Do they re-sign him?
Mm-hmm.
Typically they don't. You never know. Maybe they do. But if they don't, it's not the end of the world. Now you don't have to worry about overpaying for the free agent running back. You don't have to worry about that whole scenario. You've got an in-house guy that you drafted. He's big. He fits the style of what you want to run. You still got Williams to complement him. So I think they're in a good situation whether he stays or whether he goes. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean that's the biggest. That was a smart draft pick by the Packers.
Yeah, I like it. I like Dillon too. Maybe in the future. I don't want to see him too much this year, though, probably. So
yeah, and then so getting back on the last category here, a player on the fantasy football radar. Always got those guys that are blips for the moment, but guys that are on my radar I'm looking at. I've got Justin Jefferson for the Vikes, rookie wide receiver. I thought he landed in a good spot for fantasy football. He's going to step in, like we were saying, alongside Adam Thielen. He's going to assume the Stephon Diggs role, and Thielen and Jefferson, I think they're the only true players on that team that command the most targets. And we know Thielen's got some injuries over the past couple of years, but Jefferson, I mean, he should see over 100 targets in year one. And I think he's got more upside if anything were to happen to Thielen, even if he misses a few games, it's going to have to be him. I think they got that Olabisi Johnson is the other receiver. I mean, there's really nobody past them. They're almost in the same boat as the Packers receiver-wise. So Jefferson for sure. And the biggest thing is Thielen and Jefferson are both slot guys. So putting them outside, they're not going to just plant them outside, right? They've got to have them as movable pieces in that offense. So where do they move them? Where do they excel? He's just a guy on my radar. I want to see how he shakes down in that offense for this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Justin Jefferson's definitely a guy I wanted the Packers to target. I think they could have been. Where did they draft him? Trying to think. The Vikings, they drafted him right before Green Bay, right? Because the Packers finished ahead of the Vikings in the draft.
Yeah,
but that was a guy that I was kind of hoping. Because, the Vikings beat the Saints, and then they lost to the Niners, and the Packers lost to the Niners. So I think they were right before the Packers. But that was definitely a guy that I was, fingers crossed. I hope we get him. Come to find out that was never going to happen. But, the Packers turned it up to get Love, of course. They drafted ahead of the Vikings. But anyway, yeah, I like Jefferson a lot. But just a guy, I think, did you mention him earlier, Alan Lazard?
Yeah, we talked about him at the top with just Packers.
Yeah. But. Well, that's a guy I got he was kind of a blip on the radar last year with some sneaky production. That's a guy that he's on my radar. I doubt he gets drafted in a lot of leagues. But I could see him becoming the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay and having, like 600 yards, 7 touchdowns, kind of a spot start, flex guy, that's just a guy on my radar as a Packer honk. He's obviously on my radar, but that's a guy I think in all reality in fantasy, could get some sneaky production out of him.
Yeah, and I'm curious. Most of the drafts and mocks that I've been doing, like you said, he either doesn't get drafted or he gets drafted way late. So I don't know if this Funchess thing changes that moving forward. With we're getting into August here pretty quick, so the fantasy drafts are starting. They're going to be hot and heavy. Does that change things? I get the most feeling that everybody's staying the hell away from anybody not named Devontae Adams in that receiver room. You know what I mean? So you should. So he should be
available. In other words, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You should be able to get him if you like him, if you believe in him. Take him late. Don't reach for him and get him. You know what I mean? You shouldn't ever have to reach for the guy. But if he's in that neighborhood and you're looking at the other players, then you're like, man, these guys kind of suck. I don't really like any of them. And you see Lazard, take Lazard, man. It's real life NFL. He should be the 2. So
he should, yeah. A fun stat about Alan Lazard. Prior to 2019, he had one NFL snap.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
He had one NFL snap, and then, we signed him off. I think it was the Raiders practice squad or something like that. And we all know the catch he had against Detroit, the big catch at the end of the game there. But for a guy to come off of another team's practice squad and come into our team, now granted our wide receiver core wasn't hard to rise to the top, Austin Adams, but he came in and gained Rodgers' trust right away. It seemed like, and he's a big target. He's 6'5", and he had some timely catches. Like I can remember there were games where it was like we need someone to make a play here, third and 8, and then Rodgers uncorks it to Lazard, not Adams, and it's like, man, he trusts this guy, and Lazard catches it, and it's like, man, you know what? And obviously, as a Packer fan, I probably have a little bit more stock in him than the average NFL fan that isn't a Packer fan. But I think we saw enough out of him last year that, for coming into the Packer season with one NFL snap, I mean, basically he was like a rookie, right? And that's kind of how you treat that guy. And he does that. I mean, yeah, who knows what he could become. I don't think he's going to be an elite, but I think he could be a legit wide receiver too.
Yeah, well, that's what I always say. I mean, you should know your home team better than anybody. So when it comes time to draft,
I know my home team of the Bears.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you should know those guys. So if you're going to get laughed at on Twitter for taking them, let them laugh because you know more better than anybody. And going back to what I said in that neighborhood. So if I'm on the clock and I'm, around the 60th pick and I'm looking at receivers in that neighborhood, I've got Lazard and I've got Curtis Samuel for the Panthers. Okay. Teddy Bridgewater's the guy. They just signed Robbie Anderson. D.D. Westbrook for the Jags. Minshew's at the quarterback helm. You've got Hunter Renfrow. I do love Renfrow for the Raiders. I would assume he's gone. Yeah. He always gets picked ahead of his spot there. Then you got Deshaun Jackson, boomer bust, ultimate boomer bust guy. Michael Pittman for the Colts. Yeah. He's a rookie. Paris Campbell for the Colts. He was hurt last season. James Washington, Corey Davis. So I look at Lazard all day, man. That's your pick. That's your highlighted green value right there.
He's gonna get more value in terms of targets than those guys, I would think.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Right, especially as a 2.
So I love looking at value as like a main driver and when I'm picking a guy. Like how much, and not so much stats, but what's his value? What do I think his value is going to be this year? Because that's what it takes to get good, to have a good fantasy production year. You got to have a value to support that. So I like to look for value, and in that case, I like his volume, even though he's not quite the name of those other guys you mentioned. I think his volume is above it.
Yeah, volume and targets are my pretty much. I put those pretty high priority. I know the stats are flashy and all that stuff. You always look at them, but for me, bottom line, I want to see volume. I want to see targets, and then of those targets, what did he catch? What percentage did he catch? That were receptions. So that I put more stock in that. I think that tells you a more clear story. And when you get into the late round stuff, that's how you can really identify some good guys in there. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It sounds like we're both taking Alan Lazard this year late in the draft.
I think I will. Yeah, I'm trying to. I did a dynasty draft, and somebody snagged him. I did that Scott Fishbowl, and I think somebody else took him way early. I can't remember. I'm never going to take a guy too early. I'll go aggressive if it's a guy that I've locked in as a target. But if it's somebody that I want, but I'm not real heavy on, I'm not going to reach. And then I think the only other, I've only got 2 drafts in so far because I've got 3 coming up in August. And I think that rounds it out. And then a best ball one. I don't really want him in best ball, but yeah, that's really it. So hopefully I should be able to snag him in one of these coming up, I'd imagine. Unless somebody's listening to this and they'll snipe me and take him out of me. That happens a lot too.
Last year, I'm in a fantasy league with some guys that are from Wisconsin Whitewater, and it was the last round of the draft, and I knew the guy behind me that I was drafting directly ahead of was going to take Jake Kumaro, and I took him just to kind of be like, like
go.
I still he was going to be Mr. Irrelevant last pick of the draft, and I went ahead and took him ahead of the guy, and they kind of set up a lot of kind of a shit talking storm. But
Well, it kind of sucks they're not going to have public available spots at the training camp.
yeah, down to 80, right?
I don't.
Come with the roster.
Well, no. I mean, for when the Packers go practice, I don't think it's
Oh,
open to
yeah,
the public
yeah.
this year, is it?
No, it's not. Nope. So no one can go in there and get their peepers on who's doing what.
No, damn, that sucks because I always go up there in July and hit up a couple practices. It's the best, man. It's the best. I don't know if you've ever been to one.
I've never done that.
Well, if they can do it next year, if we're 2021 and we're back to normal, and you want to go to one, let's do a meetup and go out there because I love going to that. I go every year. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And
I would love to go, man.
Yeah,
I would absolutely love that.
I know where to set up. I learned a lot over the years, like where to set up and sit, because they used to have the cherry pickers up there running tape, and you'd always set up between them. That's where the practices, the good stuff was going to be at. And then the other end of the field would be like special teams, stuff like that. Most people don't know it, but now they changed it. The way they do tape, I don't know if it's from a booth or somewhere else. So it's a little harder to tell, but you get there early, you can see where they're coming out and warming up, and then you kind of float around. But it's a great experience. You can hear everything on the field. You can see the players, standing right in front of you. The only thing separating you is the railing. You can hear what they're talking about, the coaches. You can hear how they're getting coached up. It's hilarious, man. It's really good. It's a good thing. So yeah,
that almost sounds more enjoyable than an actual game.
It kind of is. Honestly, it really kind of is. You can meet a ton of cool people there, and there's so many people from all over the U.S. I met people from Idaho. I met people from Texas. All over the place, man. There's always some jackass with like a Bears jersey or a Vikings jersey. You know what I mean? Like the closet Packer fan, but they're not ready to come out just yet. So they want to put the Vikings thing on, and then why are you wearing a Vikings jersey?
Yeah.
Like, Packers suck. I'm just here because the wife wants to see him. Nah, you're probably rooting for him. Those guys are always walking around, always crack up. Never fails. But it's cool.
Like, why are you here, bro?
Yeah, why are you
whatever.
here? Why are you wearing full Viking Brett Favre gear to a Packers practice? I don't care that it's.
That would chat my ass if I saw someone in the Brett Favre Vikings jersey at a Packers.
Every season, man. Every season. I should take pictures of these guys or something.
Yeah, make up like a funny hashtag for those guys and roast them on Twitter. Make them famous.
Yeah, every season that I've gone since Brett Favre has gone, there is a Brett Favre Vikings jersey at every Packer practice. I swear to God, because I'm always laughing when I see it. It's like, gotta be kidding me.
It's like trying to root for two teams there. So Brett Favre jersey, but it's a Vikings Brett Favre jersey. It's kind of like, you can't do that, man.
No,
it's not allowed.
You can't. Yeah, it's just not right. And then especially be walking around Lambeau, in the practice field with it. It's like the players. I just wonder what the players say when they see that. Wouldn't they be like, look at this fool here walking in?
Yeah, this guy. He's confused.
Yeah, very confused. But yeah, that's a great thing. If you get there at the right times, you can get autographs and stuff. Some of the adults are pretty nasty, trying to step over the kids and stuff. But if you stand in the right spot,
I hate to see that.
Yeah, it's pretty. Some of them are pretty hardcore, man. They got like, it's like, come on, just let the kid get the autograph, guys.
No
like,
kidding.
Some of them are pretty hardcore. But if you catch them riding the bikes down, before all the kids, they kind of sit at the end. If you catch them early, they'll sign stuff for you. I've gotten stuff signed, and I've met.
Oh, nice.
Geronimo Allison. He was always a big one that he'd stand around and talk to a lot of people. He signed a lot of stuff. He was really cool. It was really.
He's a fighting Illini alumni. It's a mouthful to say that. But he's a U of I guy, and now he's on the Lions, unfortunately.
Yeah, I always liked him. I thought he'd do good, but then he had that core injury. I don't know, did he tear his groin or an ab or something? And he just was never the same.
It's abdominal. Yeah, and he was. Remember 2018 season, the first 5 games of the season, he was on a tear. Like his projections that year were going to be like close to 1,000 yards and like 8 or 9 touchdowns. And then he had the injury. And then last year, I can't tell you how many times I cursed his name because he just could not hang on to a ball.
Yeah. Because that one year he flashed. He had Aaron Rodgers' trust. And it was like, man, this guy, he could emerge. He could be a solid contributor for this team. And then just that injury never came back. He wasn't the same guy.
Nope. and now he's the Lions problem.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Holy crap.
but no, John, I always like Gmo. I thought he's always just a good guy. So
Yeah,
he
he was
seemed like
cool.
a good guy.
He would sign damn near everybody's stuff for autographs.
Wow.
He would get mobbed, and he would sign every single one, hit the field with a smile on his face. Like, he was a super cool guy. Super cool guy. I tried to get Darnell Savage last season, when he was the rookie out of Maryland, because I'm from Maryland. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna wear my Terps jersey that's got the flag on it. Like, nobody's gonna have that. He's gonna notice it, and he's gonna come over and sign it. Right? That was my grand idea. Well, I seen him, and he was getting mobbed by a bunch of kids. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll wait. I'll get him, when he comes down a little more. Well, he came down a little more, same thing, lots of kids. I'm like, I'll let him go. I'll catch him probably at the end, because right before they go on the field, there's like a little corner they round, and that's where most 90% of the people are at, and that's where they sign the most. I didn't realize that because I was so tied up in the middle of the road where they ride the bikes down, and I was standing off to the side in front of one of these doors, and I let him go, and then next thing I know, boom, he was on the field. Like, he rounded that corner, saw a couple things, and my wife's like, he's still at the corner, and I'm like, no, he's not. And then I look up, and he's walking into the field, and I'm like, damn, I missed it. That's all right though. As soon as I said that, Mark Murphy walked out of the door of the practice thing, and like, I turned around, I was like looking right at him. I'm like, what's up, Mark? That was the first thing I said. I didn't even know what to say. I'm like such a fanboy idiot, right? I'm like, what's up, Mark? And he goes, thanks for coming out. He kept walking. He was really nice.
I know what I tell that guy. I tell him to get a decent haircut.
I tell him to quit sledding, making those memes of himself. You ever see that when it was like my GM and he was sledding down the snow hill?
Yeah. Yeah. The guy is worth millions, and he's on public TV with like a $2 haircut.
He's like,
it just drives me nuts. I'm like,
Mark Davis, right? Same kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, what in the hell, man? Like,
yeah, but he was
I
cool.
get
like,
it.
You go to those practices, you never know what you'll see or people you could run into. It's really cool, man. So next season, if you want to get out, hit me up. I'll let you know when I'm going to one.
Definitely.
And we'll go hang out, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. I'd love to do that.
And you get kick-ass pictures too. Like, if you're into taking pictures of stuff, or even with just your phone, I mean, you're close enough that you can get some good shots, good action shots. And then they do the 7-on-7 work. That's really cool. It's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like a hoot, man. I've always wanted to get up there for a practice. I never have. I don't want to go up alone and not know what to do, where to stand, type thing. So if I got a guy up there, that makes it a lot easier to do that.
Yeah,
so.
we'll definitely do that for sure.
Perfect.
All right. Well, yeah, let's wrap up the pod here. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time talking Packers. Always like talking Packers with fellow fans, and
absolutely.
And the fantasy picks too. So before we wrap it up, how many leagues are you doing this season?
Not counting DraftKings, because that's like an endless number for me.
Right,
yeah. Every year I'm down to 3 leagues. I was in, I think, 6 or 7 at one point, but I'm down to 3 leagues now. They're the 3 most competitive leagues. I would like to get into a dynasty league, but not just like any old one. The ones that, they've been around, the ones that, they're competitive, people pay on time, all that. I would like to get into one of those. My cousin's in one of those. It sounds like it's like a year-round thing versus just an NFL season thing. So, but right, yeah, for this year I'll be in 3, and then I'll have 300 or so different entries into DraftKings probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got if I could just do 3 leagues, I would be set. But I'm always into much more. It's like 8 to 10, it seems like. But this year I did do a lot of different ones. I got like an NFL Pick'em league, picking point spreads. I did a best ball draft. I did the dynasty. I'll have 2 redrafts. So I mean, just mix it up a little, get a little variety in there, I guess.
Yeah, and the best ball, I think I like that. I'd like to get into one of those. I got invited to a couple of those last year, but they were like $5. And it's just like, what's the point? It's not worth my time.
Yeah, there's a few I did like $25 entries and draft the teams.
Yeah.
You get like a bunch in there. That's pretty fun. Just do a couple of them. But best ball is pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for hopping on again. And we will see you out there in the Twitterverse.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate being on the show.
Anytime. We'll talk throughout the season for sure. And of course, go Pack Go, right?
Always go Pack Go, baby.
All right. We'll talk to you then.
All right. See ya.
Yeah, all right, this press conference is over.
Go away.
No, it's over, Phil.
Well, please,
It's over.